Hello everyone, and welcome to the RV Inspection and Care channel. I'm Dwayne and I'm a certified RV inspector. Today we're going to talk about the three main kinds of RV house batteries in use today, the ones that are most commonly found. And we're going to compare the pros and the cons of each. Now when I talk about house batteries, I'm talking about the batteries in your RV that power your appliances, your items in the RV, and things like that. We're not talking about the batteries that you might find in a motorhome that starts the engine. They're off the menu today. Those are called chassis batteries. Today, it's just house batteries, and three kinds that we're going to cover. Number one, we're going to talk about the 6-volt flooded cell lead acid battery. Number two, AGM batteries, or absorbed glass mat batteries. And number three, we're going to talk about lithium batteries. Now, before we get started on the pros and the cons, let's mention one thing. There's a lot of variables that can affect the lifespan of a battery. And some of those variables are how often you discharge and charge the battery, how deeply you discharge that battery on a regular basis, how well you maintain the battery if it's requiring maintenance, and even the temperature that it's normally found in. That can affect the life of the battery. But what we're doing today is just talking about generalizations in comparing each kind of battery, the pros and the cons. So let's go ahead and get started. Now let's start with the 6-volt flooded cell lead acid battery. What are the pros? Well, these are the kind of batteries that are very often found in golf carts, and they're readily available. You can usually find them in auto parts stores, you can find them in Sam's Club and places like that. Also, the cost is usually a little less than the other batteries that we're going to talk about today. Now, the other pro in their favor is that the technology has been around a long time for these kind of batteries. In golf carts, they use thicker lead plates, so they're very reliable. They take a pounding. They're tough batteries, and that's a good thing. They generally will last about 1,000 cycles of complete discharge and recharge. Now, if you don't completely discharge them every time, they'll last longer than that, but that's a pretty good length of time. What are the cons of these 6-volt lead acid flooded cell batteries? Well, number one, they're very heavy. They're heavier than the other batteries we're going to talk about today. So if you have cargo carrying capacity issues, well, these particular batteries can contribute to that. Now, the second con we want to mention is that you really should only discharge these down to about 50% on a regular basis. They can occasionally take a discharge that goes down to 20% or so, but don't do it on a regular basis. Now, because they only take about a 50% discharge, well, then the amp hour rating of the battery, or how much power it's going to give you, is effectively cut in half. You'll need twice as many batteries if you only use half the power that it puts out at a time. So that's something to consider. Another con is that they take regular maintenance to keep them up. And what is the maintenance? Well, it's monthly watering them. You've got to add water to these batteries. During the charge and discharge cycle, water is often evaporated. So you got to replace that water in the battery to keep it functioning like it should. Another con is these batteries off-gas. In other words, they put off corrosive gases, and that means you cannot keep them inside the RV because that's dangerous. So they have to go in a compartment outside the RV that's well vented. Also, if you store these kind of batteries, well, they'll lose their charge pretty quickly. They will drop their charge about 5% every month that they're stored and not being charged. So what can we say about the conclusion of 6-volt flooded cell lead acid batteries? Who are they best for? Well, you know, if you spend all your time in a campground, pretty much, you know, that's where you can be found almost all the time, then just a couple of these batteries will do you fine. That's all the bank that you need, and so you can keep your costs down that way. If you are a full-timer or a boondocker, then if you have a larger battery bank of these kind of batteries, again, you can keep a larger bank for a lower cost than some of the other batteries we'll talk about. And they're very reliable, they're tough, and they will take a pounding. So that's what we can say about 6-volt flooded cell lead acid batteries. But now, our next battery is the AGM battery, or the absorbed glass mat battery. What are the pros of AGM batteries? Well, the good news is no water. So there's no maintenance with AGM batteries. That's a big, big pro. Also, there's not as much off-gassing as lead acid batteries put out, so it's not quite as corrosive in the compartment they're kept in. Another big one is you can mount them in any position. Remember, there's nothing to spill, so you can put them in any position you want. That's good for RVers that have space issues, and they may need to put them in places that they can't put anything else. They also will charge faster than many other kind of batteries too, or most lead acid batteries. They can be discharged down to 20% of their capacity on more of a regular basis than the flooded cell lead acid golf cart batteries too. So that's a big plus there. I wouldn't do it on a regular basis, but it can be done much more often with an AGM battery. While they're stored, they have a very low self-discharge rate too, so that's good. And they'll last about 1,000 full discharge and charge cycles, kind of like the golf cart type battery. So what can we say about the cons of AGM batteries? Well, the cons are that they do cost more, so they're a little more expensive than lead acid batteries. They also are going to need a charger that's capable of charging AGM batteries. This is not a major issue, but you just do not want to use single stage chargers with these kind of batteries. And the reason for that is the next con: they don't take overcharging well. Not at all. It can really damage the battery. So be sure you have a good charger for them. They also must be installed in a vented compartment outside the RV because, again, they don't off-gas as much as lead acid batteries, but they do off-gas at times. And so what is the conclusion then about AGM batteries? Well, they're very good for full-timers and boondockers who have a little bit more money to spend on their battery bank. And they're very good for solar. Now, let's move on to our third kind of battery, the lithium battery. And the pros of lithium batteries are, number one, very light, incredibly light. They're about half the weight of a flooded cell lead acid battery. Number two, no maintenance. There's no water to have to replace or any maintenance at all to them. The next pro, they can be installed in any position because there's nothing to spill. So that's a great advantage. Here's a real good pro: no off-gassing, none. So what does that mean? In many cases, you can install these batteries inside the RV and not have to worry about it. That's really good for folks who have very limited cargo carrying capacity, and so they might need a unique kind of space to be used for batteries, like travel trailers, for instance. Now, The next pro is how long these batteries can last. They have a lifespan of 3,000 to 5,000 complete discharge charge cycles. I mean, that is really amazing. They just last and last and last. Another pro, they charge quickly, up to 4 times faster than other batteries. And as far as storing these kind of batteries, very low self-discharge rate. Here's another big one, and this is huge. These kind of batteries can be discharged almost 100%. Wow, that's incredible. You really get the full use out of the battery with a lithium battery. Well, what are the cons of lithium batteries? Well, lithium batteries actually solve most of the cons of all the other battery types. So there aren't a lot of cons, but there's one big one: cost. They cost 4 to 5 times as much as lead-acid batteries. So that's a big con. But in all fairness, because they last so long, they may actually be cheaper in the long run than these other battery types. It's just that you've got to come up with that big upfront cost to buy them, and that's a big pill to swallow. What is the conclusion? Lithium batteries are great for full-timers, boondockers of all stripes, and they are super for solar setups. Well, now let's mention just a couple more things about batteries, and that is, whatever kind of battery you use, make sure that you use a quality battery charger with it, charger converter. One of the biggest reasons that batteries get killed in RVs is because they're used with a single stage type charger that just pounds away at that battery, oftentimes even overcharging it. Well, what you really want is a multi-stage charger converter. And what that means is that it will have a stage where it does bulk charge the battery up to about 80%. But then it goes into an absorption stage. And when it finally gets the battery charged, then it just float charges it without overcharging. So make sure that no matter what battery bank you have, you use a good multi-stage charger with it. The number 2 thing we want to mention, never mix and match any of these kind of batteries together. That's a no-no. Don't go down and get half flooded lead-acid batteries and then half AGMs. Oh no, that don't work. Consistency is the name of the game here. So keep it consistent. The same kind of battery, the same kind of manufacturer, as much similar as you can get, and it will reward you for doing that. Well, that's it on batteries for now. We could go on talking about batteries and all the various things that are interesting to know about batteries, and we could just continue to talk about them for a very long time. But what I wanted to do today is just familiarize you with the pros and cons of the main kinds of house batteries and help you get a good idea of what might work best for you. If you like this information, would you do me a favor and like the video? Because YouTube likes on the video. So that helps us YouTube creators when you like our videos. Also, if you have any comments about RV batteries or your experience with them or anything you want to add to what we've talked about, or even if you disagree with what we've talked about, that's fine. Enter it in the comments below. We want to hear from your experience. Also, we'd love to have you visit my website, rvinspectionandcare.com. There's a lot more information there than you will even find on my YouTube channel. And finally, I would love to have you become part of our online family, and all you have to do is just hit that subscribe button to do that. That way you won't miss any of the videos I'm putting out on a twice-weekly basis. Well, that's it for now. Have safe and happy travels, my friends. Until next time.